if I was approaching this project, setting up a centre for sustainable development, what would I think about? So I thought I'd do some acronyms. So my first one is GAP. And the question is, what gap is the centre aiming to fill? And for me, that would start with defining what the goals of the centre are. What does the centre actually want to achieve? And I think that's a kind of important first question we should be asking. And then once we know what we want, or once the centre knows what it wants to achieve, we need to think about the A, which is audiences. So which audiences do we actually need to reach to achieve the goals? Because this kind of centre is going to be advisory and supportive. It's not, it may, probably won't do a lot in terms of its own projects, although CAT did actually, so there may be some direct projects. But it struck me that we should be thinking about the market. What market research is required? How do we engage with the audiences? For example, should there be some focus groups to talk to people about what their needs are? And also a gaps analysis. What are the gaps in the market, and are there any competitors? It sounds as though from what Charles said, there aren't really, but it's always worth thinking who else might be providing a service like this. And then my P is that once you know your goals and you've thought about your audiences, you can start to think about what programs you need to deliver so that the audiences will receive something which will enable the centre to achieve its goals. So is this going to be a centre that just provides useful information to people? Or will it be one that also provides advice? Or will it, like CAT, be an organisation that provides training and education? And if it is, to what levels? Who's it going to train? Who's its audience? Is it the people we see building the water storage facility for the eco home here? Will it be the people who supervise them? Will it be the designers who design the project? Will it be the engineers they work with? Who are the kind of key audiences? So I tried to come up with an acronym GAT, G-A-H-A-T, but it didn't work. So I've come up with ALP instead, which of course is a European mountain range. So it would have been great to actually have been able to work with an Indian one, but I wanted to talk about quality and achieving peak performance, because I know from the other work that SCAD does that excellence is a really important part of its work. So my first thought, and some of this I've discussed with Nick already, my first thought is, does the centre need an expert advisory board? So obviously there are many experts at SCAD. Some organisations form an expert advisory board which is made up of their own experts, but also brings in some other expertise, maybe people like Borough Happold, who can meet occasionally. And these days, of course, it's really easy, isn't it? Because we've got this technology now that enables us to meet, and who can offer advice maybe on programs or on pedagogy. Although I guess SCAD doesn't need much of that because it's already really expert in pedagogy. But maybe people who've got expertise in running this kind of organisation elsewhere. Something which I always say in every context is that you need a dedicated leadership team. So you really need probably a small team to begin with, but people whose job is just to do this, because otherwise you get pulled in lots of different directions. And that leadership team will then become the people who are seen and identified by the customers and the advisors as the people, the go-to people on this. And then very obviously you need a plan. So the plan needs to be a business plan that the leadership team owns and that SCAD owns, and it will need SMART targets, which can be checked regularly. And I guess you guys do that already, but specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound targets. And there are lots of other initials you can add to SMART these days, aren't there? But those are the kind of core elements. So, of course, the whole objective of this is to achieve fame, because we really want this to be the place that people know is the place to go to for really important advice about sustainability. And my FAME acronym starts with money, because we won't get that fame if we can't get the funding. So once you've got the business plan, that's the tool which you can use to go and raise money. But the business plan also needs to think really hard about how this place can be funded. And it may need to think about that over time. So Charles has explained how SCAD's funded at the moment. Obviously, there's a potential to get fees from people, but to get fees, you need people who want to be trained and need to be trained. And I think we know from our work on the Eco Home at the moment that probably the legislation in Tamil Nadu and the leanings, as it were, of the people in government in Tamil Nadu don't necessarily mandate the requirement for sustainability to the extent that we would like to see it. And of course, it'd be really helpful if it did, because then people would have to get trained. On the other hand, SCAD is a brilliant centre already with some fantastic experts like Angelina and Professor Gopal and so on, who provide really high quality training. So it seems sensible to me to think about how training and education products could be created for this centre, which could be charged for. But also, of course, we need to think about whether there are grants available and whether there are some services that the centre could possibly sell into the marketplace as well. And again, that may be possible. And as you know, as successful products are developed and as demand grows, as it will do for greener investment, then that's something which could follow on. So the business plan obviously needs to think about this in terms of time. My A for fame is action. I think it's really important to get up and running and do something quickly. Once you've got enough in the way of a plan and a team and finance in place, get some quick wins. I've worked on some massive projects in the past, and we always found that to get the project to be credible, we needed to get something out there and get started and get some quick wins. Of course, marketing is essential to get the word out. I loved the sign that we had for the Indian Urban Futures conference back in March 2019. Graphically brilliant, and that's one of the things we need. But which are the channels that are best to reach the audiences? If we want to reach people whose literacy levels are low, for example, what's the best way to communicate with them? If we wanted to reach people like that, if we've got people, as I think most people, you know, Tamil Nadu has a very high level of education, so probably we're not talking about this the same way that we might be doing in other parts of India. So how do we get to those people? Is it social media? Is that the way that people are communicating now? Almost certainly, I think. And one of our colleagues suggested to us the E here, which is endorsements. So how do we get the word out? And obviously happy customers are the best people. You know, I did this amazing course at the Gardens of Delight, and you should do it too. But also endorsements by leading lights, you know, so if we could get the district collector or, you know, important people from industry, you know, well-known architects and designers to endorse the whole project, that will be really great as well, I think. So basically it's GAP, it's ALP, and it's FAME would be my starting points for a project like this. But you've got lots of experience as well. I think now's a good time to discuss you know, other ideas, things that I haven't mentioned, areas where you think actually we can do this, and areas where you think, okay, that's you know, that's a challenge. We need some help with it. Thank you.